Welcome back to Nugget Garage. We're still waiting for some parts for the Gokart, so rather than give you guys a short episode of pretty much bugger all, we've decided to show you guys our other cars here and kick this thing out for the week and get back into it when the parts turn up, if they ever turn up. So we're going to show you through the couple that we've got left here now, and Scott's other one, which you can't see at the moment, which is probably the one that most people will actually know him for. And we've got another car just over here, which will be a project coming up as well. And you'll also see probably these two on there at some stage as well. This one firstly, as we're going to be doing a drag challenge thing, which is much like drag week in America, just much smaller. It's only over 2 tracks but 3 days, and we're going to be running that one down there for that. So we're going to prep that one up in this coming week and get that ready for drag challenge and cover that as well when we get out there and do it. So we'll get into showing you these cars. Alright, so the first car we've got here is our little mascot car for the channel. This is a KE26 Corolla. It's a 74 model. It's actually quite a rare one. It is a 2-door, not a 4-door station wagon, and it is a windowless van, which makes it a little bit rarer than a lot of the other ones. 4-door ones are a little bit more common, but even they're a little bit rare. This car's sat under a house for 10 years from the guy I got it off. It's been off the road for well over 22 odd years. It's only got a genuine 67,000 kilometres on it, which is all it's done in its life, which is I think about 41,000 miles from new. It has been painted at some stages. It sat outside. It wasn't done very well. All the top, as you can see, is all flaking off. Apart from that, the car is completely original and standard. It's got the original motor, the original gearbox. I think it was only on probably second set of tyres when I got it. I've replaced pretty much everything rubber since I've had it. I've gone through it and got it back on the road. So we've just been cruising around in it. I've had it on the road for probably about 18 months now, and I've still only done about 900 kilometres in it, which is about 500 miles, 550 miles or something like that. So it still to this day doesn't travel very much. So we're looking to painting it one day, but that's the first one of our little collection. The second one will be the white Corolla you can see here. I think you guys have TE21s, I think they are in the States. It's a KE20 here in Australia. This is Scott's little KE20 Corolla. It's a bit of a sleeper. It looks a bit sedate, but it's actually a little bit angry. It's got a 13B rotary in it with a 3-speed Jatco automatic box in it. It's got a GT42 Garrett turbo hanging off it. Runs E85 through an Autronic ECU. So the motor and box and diff, pretty much everything else in this car now came out of Scott's other car, which is probably the one everyone will know the most. Essentially sat on blocks for many years until Scott was offered the car back to buy. And I think he got a bit nostalgic from all his old stuff and bought it. He's changed a few things. He's upgraded the ECU and put an Autronic ECU in it, which we run in pretty much everything. Changed to E85 because when Scott had all this stuff in the other car, there was no E85 back then. The car's actually making a good 550 around about rear wheel horsepower. We ran this at Jamboree, which is a drag event, about a year ago, and it ran a best of 950 at 144. On about 23 pound of boost. The car's now on 29 pound, so it's got a little bit more in it. So we're tipping it's probably good for about a 920. So hopefully we can get it down in those numbers, maybe even a little bit lower if we're lucky and get a good track. So this one here is my car that Scott built actually quite a few years ago. He owned this car for a long time and then turned it into what it is now. So this car, although it looks fairly stock and nano-spec, again, like this one isn't. This one's actually had a lot of work done to it. And this one actually runs a Toyota Supra or an SC400 Lexus quad cam V8, the 1UZ. It is the early 1UZ with the bigger rods. And we've got a GT42 turbo hanging off it, which makes it get along pretty well. Scott first built this car for power cruise events and anything else he felt like at the time. I think he ran it on about 21 pounder boost with a GT42 on E85, and it had the A340 with a modified valve body, much the same as the truck and the van do. I think the car made around 500 rear wheel horsepower at that, and he took it out the drags. I think he ran a best of 960 at 140 in it. And then I eventually ended up buying the car off Scott quite a few years ago. And I've changed a few things about it since I've had it. It's still essentially the same, it's still a 1UZ auto. But the car's still got the same diff, which is actually a 10 bolt Salisbury diff out of a HQ Holden Ute. We're still not sure how it's actually still there and working. It does leak, which I think it might be a Salisbury thing, but it's actually still intact. It does have a full spool in it, but it hasn't broken yet, but we haven't used a trans brake on it yet either. Since I've had it, I've changed quite a few things on it. I've pulled the A340 out and put in a 2-speed power glide box with a converter, which has helped it quite a bit. And I've changed the head studs from the standard ARP 10mm head studs that you can buy off the shelf. And we've actually gone to an 11mm RB25 head stud, which involves drilling out the heads and the block and retapping the block, but a bigger stud obviously, so we can put a bit more clamping pressure on it. And again, the Cometic head gaskets. I've also put a set of spool rods in it while I was there. The pistons are all pretty good in these out of the factory, so it has got forged rods in it with standard pistons. The heads are all standard, but we have got a custom Kelford cam in it, which is about a 286 cam. It's actually quite grumpy. And after a retune on I think about 25 pound, I think we made around the 650 rear wheel horsepower mark, maybe 700, depends on your dyno. America, probably 850, I don't know. But I took it out and I had one pass. This car doesn't have a cage, so I got kicked out after my one and only pass. And with only a 1.6 second 60 foot time and a short shift, the car still went 920, but it did it at 155 mile an hour. So it's pretty much telling us that it's probably got a high 8 in it as it is now. So if we can, and that was no trans brake, and we just sent it off the foot brake. So it's got quite a bit of potential in it, and we're going to get back into this thing. Hopefully we'll get a cage in it eventually and take it back out there and see if we can't break into that 8 second zone.
So this is my 1973 KE20 Corolla. I've had it for probably 20 years. It's my pride and joy. Bought it off a spray painter, panel beater guy that I knew in Cleveland way back then. The provision was I wasn't to touch the body because it was a pretty bloody good body back then. So I've pretty much stayed true to that word. Still Toyota C3 bamboo. Hasn't had a touch up done on it yet. It's actually in this state now because I had a pretty big nitrous backfire trying to make a too tight converter work at the last meeting. It's destroyed my bonnet and destroyed the turbo. Anyway, I've a little bit over it this year, so we've decided to pull it apart and get it painted back to the same colour. It's probably due for a freshen up. It's got 40-year-old paint on it. This car started life as a completely stock KE20 when I got it. It's had multiple different engine combos in it, 12As, 13Bs, 13B turbos, had a 253 in it once. Never got to the road with that, probably pointless anyway. After the 13B, went into the 10s, started having problems with reliability, couldn't really get any decent fuel back then. A lot of people were starting to put 2Js, or having good success with 2Js in the States, so I decided why not put a 2J in this. So I cut the fire out one night and the rest is history. Since then, I think it's the first 7-second radial car in Australia. I did that about 9 years ago now, or 10 years ago. It's not that impressive now, but essentially this car is a stock 73 Corolla. It has stock doubled up leaf springs, it has standard shockeys in it, has a boring bar and Caltrax, high ace diff. For a long time now I ran a shortened Hilux diff in it. It's now got a high ace diff with race products floaters. Had quite a lot of success with this car. I've won modified 10.5 a few times at Jamboree. Back in the Power Cruise days, it's pretty much untouched as an off-street drag car. This car used to get the best of everything I could afford and the most of my time. Unfortunately lately, with 5 kids and a business and a mortgage, it now gets second-hand parts, tends to break a lot. Don't seem to be enjoying it much, so I figure I'll stand back and have a year off and try and actually put some decent parts back in it, try and get some reliability back in it and trying to get the fun back. Current combination is a methanol 2JZ, so it's a grout fill block. It runs a 92mm Mr. Turbo's turbo, well, pieces of one. It's a 2JZ GTE head, it's got big GSC camshafts in it, oversized valves, runs a power glide transmission, electronic SM4 ECU, runs on alcohol, it's got 5,000cc of injector per cylinder, pretty much out now. Its current guys, I guess it was making about 1,500 horsepower. The turbos probably had enough air to sort of support 1,700. At 40 pounds of boost, 41 pounds of boost, it went 181 mile an hour and 781 in the quarter. Car doesn't 60 foot really well. It's really on a mission if it does a 1.3 or 1.32. So I think this time round we'll pull the leaves out, put a proper monoleaf in it, probably a more heavy duty Caltrac, and maybe we'll downsize the tyre from the 275 60/15 to a 255 or maybe even a 235. See if we can have a go at those, see if we can have a crack at those guys in that class. It's no longer anywhere near competitive on a 275. Those guys are going crazy. A lot of American cars over here now, and they're in the 430s and the 8th, which this thing's never going to do. So the plan from here is get it painted. I'm going to put a radiator back in the front. I'm going to put a wet block back in it. The car's still registered, so I'm going to set it up to do drag challenge stuff. I quite enjoy that. A lot more seat time than average drag event when you get maybe 1 minute and 30 in the actual car for all your effort. The idea is we're going to put a 50 litre fuel tank in the back. Put ethanol on that and let it pump up to the front tank, so I'll run an E85 on the street, and then when I get to the track I'll just pull the drain plug on the front tank and put methanol back in it and race it on methanol. The reason for that is not a whole lot of room in the front of the KE20 Corolla. You can't really have a decent size intercooler and a decent size radiator, so keeping it running on alcohol at the track I won't need the intercooler. Which gives me this whole front space for a radiator, try and keep the thing cold on the street. Anyway, she's in a bit of a sad state of affairs, but it'll come back eventually. See you at the track. Okay, this is my Mark IV Toyota Supra. This was my daily driver up to about a year ago. It started life sitting in the backyard of a mate's house on blocks, had no doors, no bonnet. I bought it off him for about $1,000. Came with a Series 2 Supra interior that was fairly tidy, low K. Also included the standard NA 2J bottom end, unknown kilometres. Anyway, so we bought this. I bought a hideous orange body kitted Supra that had a 1J single turbo and a C4 on it. I think it was about $2,000, and basically built a car out of both of them. So it ended up with the stock NA 2J short, 1J cylinder head, 286 I think they are, Calford, Camtech cams. We put the C4 on it. I bought a diff off a mate of mine. We got sent a Autronic SMC from actually Al, from the skid factory. So I put it together as it was. I think we were probably up to about a $7,000 spend. Tuned it up and it went 990, 144. It was a glorious thing. It had a silver bonnet, green bumper, a giant penis on the bonnet, a few dents in the back. I think it had different coloured doors on it. Since then, decided to give it a bit of a paint job, make it look a bit tidier. We ended up cooking the C4 after about, I think it was 3 passes. Put an A340 back in it, went through about 4 or 5 of those. Decided to build a power glide for it. Was all good until I let Chris drive it. So then we built another power glide for it. Then it was pretty much a reliable 9-second car with aircon, you know, for probably still less than $10,000. Probably couldn't do that again now. So the reason why it's sitting here and not being driven is the 2J eventually started blowing a bit of smoke. I think the oil control rings in it were a bit shot. So we decided to do something different. At that time, we'd started mucking around with 1UZs in Chris's car with big camshafts, and I started to like what they sounded like and how they made power. So the decision was made to put a 1UZ in it. It's only in here mocked up at the moment just to make sure everything's going to fit. So this was supposed to be the project. Unfortunately, the Gokart kind of got in the way. We've got a bit of a short attention span like that. Now we're waiting for parts for it, so it's dragging on a bit, sorry. So it's going to be a built 1UZ. It's going to have Argo rods, Ross pistons, big Kelford cams, GT47 88 turbo. Probably still going to keep an Autronic on it, or I might even get a Haltech ECU for it this time. Going to put a power glide in it. The idea is I want something that's sounds like a Cami V8, makes about 1,000 flywheel, and it's got good aircon, power steer, all the luxuries, so I can just cruise it every day like that. So I think in the next video we're probably going to prep that little white Corolla of mine, and we're going to film this drag week thing or drag challenge. It's run by Street Machine. Should be a bit of fun. There's a few little exhaust leaks on it. Got to service the fuel system. Might even set it up to run on 98 so we can try and keep fuel consumption between tracks to a minimum. Anyway, we'll see you then. Don't forget to like and subscribe.